A long time ago, on a faraway planet called Zerath, there stood a giant stone sword in the middle of a deep valley. The sword was not made of any known metal. It was dark silver with blue lines that glowed like fireflies at night. No one knew who made it. No one knew how it got there, but every alien on Zerath believed in one thing. Only the Chosen One can lift the sword. For hundreds of years, warriors from every tribe tried. Tall aliens with 4 arms, strong aliens with hard skin, even the smartest aliens with great minds. But all of them failed. The sword never moved. Not even a little. Over time, the sword became a symbol. Aliens came to see it like a god. Some prayed to it, others feared it. Many believed the one who lifts it will rule all planets. Then one day, a human arrived. His name was Jack Rayner. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a king. He was just a lost explorer from Earth. His ship had crashed during a solo mission. He didn't come looking for the sword. He didn't even know it existed. Aliens from the valley found him near the river, unconscious and hurt. They had never seen a human before. Some wanted to help him. Others thought he was dangerous. "Look, how weak he is," one tall alien said. "He has no claws, no armor," another laughed. "He can't even lift a rock," a child pointed out. But an old alien named Mokra, who had studied the ancient scrolls, looked at Jack and whispered, "Maybe he is the one." After Jack healed, the aliens allowed him to live in the village. He helped with farming and building. He was kind and quiet. The kids liked him, but most aliens still saw him as useless. One evening, the village elder invited Jack to a special event. "Come with us," the elder said. "We visit the sword tomorrow. It is our sacred day." Jack agreed. The next morning, hundreds of aliens gathered around the giant sword. A tall stage was built around it, and strong warriors tried to lift it again like every year, and like every year they failed. Then Mokra spoke. "Let the outsider try." Everyone laughed. "The human? He'll break his arms." But Jack didn't care. He was curious. He stepped forward quietly. As he walked near the sword, something strange happened. The blue lines on the sword began to glow brighter. The crowd gasped. Even the sky seemed to darken a little. The wind stopped. Jack placed his hand on the sword's cold handle. He felt something, a soft vibration, like the sword was breathing. He held it tighter. His heart beat faster. He pulled. Nothing moved. He tried again. Still nothing. But the sword glowed even more, now. And for the first time in hundreds of years, it made a sound. A low hum. Jack stepped back, breathing hard. The aliens stared in silence. The sword stopped glowing. But everyone knew what they saw. "This has never happened before," Mokra whispered. That night, strange things began to happen. Jack couldn't sleep. He felt heat on his skin, like he had a fever. In his dreams, he saw the sword again. But this time it was floating in the air. A voice called to him, "Come back. You are not done." He woke up sweating. Outside, the sword in the valley was glowing again, but no one was near it. Aliens gathered around it, afraid. The elders tried to stop people from speaking of the human, but the rumor spread fast. The sword spoke. The human woke it up. "He is the chosen one." Others were angry. "He is just lucky. The sword is playing tricks." But the people had seen the light. They had heard the hum. Something had changed. Back in his hut, Jack sat alone, holding his head. "What is happening to me?" he said quietly. Mokra visited him again. "You touched the sword. Now it knows you." Jack looked up. "Why me? I'm not special." The old alien smiled. "That is what makes you special. The sword chooses the one with heart, not just strength." The sword was no longer silent. Every night since Jack touched Kit, the ancient sword glowed brighter, its blue lights pulsing slowly, like a heartbeat. Some aliens called it a warning. Others called it a sign. But all of them felt something had changed. The valley where the sword stood now felt alive. Birds stopped singing there. The wind moved in strange patterns. Even the ground near the sword felt warm. Aliens whispered among themselves, "Is it waking up? Is the prophecy real? Is the human the one we feared, or the one we need?" Jack stayed inside the small hut the villagers gave him. He didn't understand what was happening. Every night the same dream returned. The sword floating in the air, glowing, calling his name. And each time he woke up, he found strange symbols burned into the stone outside his door. He didn't know the language, but Mokra did. "These are marks of the old makers," Mokra said. "They are calling you." Jack frowned. "Why me? I only touched it once." The old alien's eyes were serious. "It only takes one touch, if the sword chooses you." The alien council didn't like what they saw. "Remove the human," one elder shouted. "He brings danger." But Mokra stood before them. "No. He must stay. The sword has responded. The prophecy has begun." A silence fell over the room. No one had the courage to argue with Mokra. He was the last living keeper of the old knowledge. Still, some leaders didn't agree. One of them, a proud warrior named Zern, had tried to lift the sword many times. He hated the idea that a weak human might be the chosen one. "I will prove the sword is broken," Zern said. "Let the human try, again, in front of us all." The next day, the village was forced to gather. Everyone stood around the sword once more. Zern stepped forward first. His arms were thick as tree trunks. His chest armor was heavy. He grabbed the sword and pulled with all his strength. Nothing. He roared, tried again, his muscles shaking. Still, the sword didn't move. He stepped back. In anger, and now it was Jack's turn. Jack was nervous. He didn't want this. He was just an explorer from Earth. But the sword had called him, again and again. And deep inside, he wanted to understand why. He walked to the sword slowly. As he stepped closer, the glowing lines grew brighter. The hum returned, soft but powerful. Jack placed his hand on the sword. A shock of light shot through his arm. He gasped. The crowd stepped back in fear. His hand burned, but he didn't let go. The sword wasn't hurting him. It was testing him. In his mind, he heard a whisper, "You are close, but not ready." Jack fell to the ground, breathing hard. The sword was still in the stone, but the glow stayed even after he stepped away. Later that night, Jack walked to the edge of the valley. Mokra followed him. "I'm not strong enough," Jack said. "The sword is not about strength," Mokra answered. "It speaks to the heart, to your will. It will test you again, soon." As they looked out at the glowing blade from far away, a strange light moved in the sky above them. It wasn't a star, it was a ship. At the same time, deep inside the mountains, ancient machines began to wake. The sword's light was sending a signal, and it had reached something hidden far beneath the planet. A locked chamber opened. A voice echoed in a long-forgotten tongue. "The trial has begun." Back in the village, some aliens began to fear Jack. Others started to follow him. Kids asked for his story. Traders gave him gifts. Fighters watched him with jealous eyes. But one thing was now clear to everyone. The sword was alive, and it had chosen a human. What no one knew was that the sword was just the beginning. The sword had spoken, not in words, but in light, sound, and dreams. Jack could feel it deep inside him now. A soft energy pulsing with every step he took. Something inside the sword had awakened, and it was watching him. That night, while the village slept, Jack heard a whisper in his head again, but this time, it was clear. Face the trials. Prove your heart. The next morning, Jack woke to find the valley filled with strange marks in the dirt. Circles, lines, and glowing runes, all pointing to one path that led beyond the sword, into the Forbidden Hills. The elders gathered in silence. Mokra stepped forward, his voice heavy. "The trials of the sword have begun." No one had seen the trials in over 500 years. The path had been hidden, locked by the sword itself. Now it had returned, and Jack was the only one called. Some begged him not to go. "It's too dangerous," they said. "No one has survived." But Jack knew this was something he had to do. Not for the aliens, not for power, but because he needed to know who he really was. The first trial was the trial of strength, but it was not about lifting weights or fighting enemies. Jack entered a dark canyon. Giant rocks blocked the path. Every few meters, the floor shifted. Some rocks floated in midair. The canyon walls moved like machines. He tried to push a stone. It didn't move. Then he noticed. The rocks responded to balance, not power. He remembered something from Earth. It's not about how hard you push, it's how smart you move. It's how smart you move. So Jack stepped carefully, testing each rock, shifting his weight, using ropes and levers made from alien vines. Slowly, he made his way through. When he reached the other side, a glowing symbol appeared on the ground. Trial 1 passed. The second was the trial of mind. Jack entered a wide cave filled with floating images and lights. Alien voices whispered from every corner. In front of him were 3 doors, each glowing a different color. A voice echoed, "Only truth opens the path. Lies trap the soul." Each door showed him a different vision. The first showed Earth, his family, his old home. The second showed Zerath, where the aliens cheered for him. The third showed a dark world, fire, war, and sorrow. Jack stood still. His heart ached for home. He missed his family. But the sword wasn't asking what he wanted. It was showing what was real. He stepped into the third door. Darkness swallowed him. For a moment, it felt cold. Then the lights faded. The sword appeared, floating in front of him, glowing warmly. Trial 2 passed. The third and final was the trial of sacrifice. This time, Jack entered a narrow tunnel. In the center of the path stood a small alien girl. She was crying. Her leg was stuck under a metal beam. Behind him, the walls began to close. Slowly, but surely, he could escape if he left her, or stay and help, risking his own life. Jack didn't think twice. He ran to the girl and tried to lift the beam. It was heavy, but he used all his strength. The walls came closer. He gritted his teeth. At the last moment, he pushed the girl out and dove with her just as the path sealed shut. When he opened his eyes, the girl was gone. She was never real. The sword appeared once more, brighter than ever. Trial 3 passed. Jack collapsed to the ground, exhausted. His body hurt. His mind was tired. But something inside him had changed. He wasn't just the lost human anymore. He was the one who passed the trials, the one the sword had chosen. Back in the valley, the villagers watched in awe. From afar, they saw the sword rise 2 inches off the ground. It floated for a moment, then dropped again. But no one had ever seen it move before. Jack returned at dawn, his clothes torn, but his eyes full of purpose. He walked up to the sword. It glowed gently, like it was smiling. He didn't try to lift it. He simply placed his hand on the handle, and the sword began to hum like a song. The stars above Zerath seemed to blink faster that night. The sword of light, once silent for centuries, now hummed with energy. The ground near it was cracked from heat. The air around it shimmered like summer fire. Aliens from nearby tribes came running when they saw the glow. "The human has returned," they whispered, "and the sword is alive again." But not everyone celebrated. High above the valley, inside the sacred temple of the council, powerful alien leaders stood in a dark circle. Their faces were hidden behind silver masks. "He passed the trials," one hissed. "He is close to lifting the sword," another whispered. "We cannot allow that," the leader said coldly. "The sword will expose the truth." They feared Jack, not because he was human, but because he was close to unlocking the ancient power that could change everything. And worst of all, the sword might reveal the lies the council had kept for generations. That night, Jack was invited to the temple, a great stone building at the top of a mountain. The path there twisted through glowing vines, smooth rocks, and alien statues. Mokra, The old alien who had helped him from the start walked beside him. "The council wishes to see you," Mokra said. "But be careful. Power makes some hearts turn cold." Jack nodded. He could feel it too. Something was wrong. Inside the temple, walls pulsed with blue energy. Strange lights moved across the floor. The room was quiet. Too quiet. At the center stood High Priest Zern, the strongest alien warrior in the land, and one who had always hated Jack. "You have walked the path," Zern said. "You have passed the trials, but one test remains." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Another test?" "The sword must accept you, fully," Zern replied. "Come, place your hand on the stone tablet." Behind the priest was an old slab covered in glowing alien runes. Jack walked up and placed his hand on it. The room flashed white. In that moment, visions rushed into Jack's mind. He saw cities burning, ships exploding in the sky, a battle long ago, humans and aliens fighting side by side, and a secret council wiping the memories of the survivors. Then he saw the sword, being hidden. They didn't protect the sword. They buried it to protect themselves. Jack gasped and fell to his knees. The visions ended. He looked up at Zern. "You've been lying to your people," Jack said. "The sword was meant to help everyone, not just you." Zern's eyes narrowed. "You know too much." Suddenly, 2 alien guards grabbed Jack from behind. They threw him into a stone cell deep below the temple. It was dark and cold. There was no window, no way out. The only sound was the distant hum of the sword, faint but steady. Even underground it called to him. Hours passed. Jack sat on the floor, thinking. Why would they hide the truth? Why me? Then he remembered the last vision, the human ship long ago, the one that brought the sword. It had crash-landed somewhere near Zirath. The sword wasn't just a weapon, it was a key. Suddenly he heard footsteps. A familiar voice spoke in a whisper. "Jack, are you awake?" It was Tally, a young alien girl from the village who had always believed in him. She held a small light crystal and a tool in her hand. "I'm getting you out of here," she said. "How did you find me?" Jack asked. "The sword sent me a dream," she said quietly. "It showed me the way." Together, they snuck through the tunnels. Jack limped but moved fast. The temple was busy above. Council members were preparing to seal the sword forever before Jack could reach it again. But the sword had other plans. As Jack and Tally reached the surface, the ground shook. The sword shot a beam of light into the sky. Everyone stopped. The temple gates burst open. Stone by stone they crumbled, and the sword, still standing alone in the valley, began to lift off the ground, spinning slowly, glowing brighter than ever. The final phase had begun. The valley glowed like a second sun. The ancient sword, silent for 1,000 years, was now floating in the air, spinning slowly, shining brighter than ever before. Aliens from all tribes stood frozen. Some dropped to their knees, others ran in fear. But Jack, he stood still. His eyes were locked on the blade. It was calling him again, not just in dreams now, but with sound, with feeling, with light. The hum of the sword was no longer faint. It beat like a drum in his chest. Tally stood beside him, trembling. "It's choosing, Jack, it's choosing you." The sky above Zirath cracked with thunder. Strange clouds swirled into rings. A beam of golden light shot down from the stars, hitting the sword. At that exact moment, a hidden chamber deep beneath the valley floor opened. Mokra, watching from afar, whispered to himself, "It's true. The Makers have returned." Jack took one slow step forward. The villagers made way for him. Even the strongest warriors who once mocked him now stood in silence. Some bowed their heads. Some cried. They had never seen the sword move, and now it moved for a human. Jack walked to the sword. It floated just a few inches above the stone it had been buried in for centuries. He reached out his hand. The moment his fingers touched the hilt, a shockwave of light burst outward, knocking back dust and wind in all directions. Yet Jack did not move. Instead, the sword gently lowered itself into his hand. The glowing runes along the blade shifted and danced. They formed into words Jack could somehow read. Only the heart that sees truth may lead. Only the hand that gives, not takes, may wield. The sword was not a weapon, it was a guide. As Jack held it high, the entire valley began to change. The ground trembled. Cracks appeared in the earth, not from destruction but from awakening. The stones moved, the old temple walls slid apart, and rising from the center of the valley came a massive structure, hidden beneath the ground all along. It wasn't a building, it was a ship. An enormous ancient starship shaped like a sword itself emerged slowly from beneath the soil. Dust and moss fell from its surface. Lights began to flicker across its metal walls. The sword in Jack's hand glowed, once again, and pointed directly to the ship. Mokra arrived, eyes wide. That is the Ark of the First Flame, the ship of the old makers. Jack looked at him. The sword led me here. Mokra nodded. Because only the one it chooses can awaken the Ark. The stories were true, all of them. But not everyone was happy. At the edge of the valley, Zern, the powerful alien warrior who hated Jack, watched with rage in his eyes. He is not one of us, Zern growled. He must not be allowed to take the Ark. He turned to a group of guards. Ready the blast cannons. Destroy the human, destroy the sword. Back inside the glowing ship, Jack stepped into the entrance as the walls opened like a blooming flower. He held the sword forward, and the door responded instantly. Inside was dark, then one by one lights came on. He walked through smooth metallic halls. Strange symbols lit up on every wall. In the center of the ship, a round chamber opened, and inside, a small floating device waited. It scanned Jack, then in a warm, calm voice it said, "Welcome, Jack Rayner. DNA confirmed. Earthborn. Rank, Explorer. Mission, Restoration." Jack stepped back. It knows me. The device floated higher and projected a large, glowing image of Earth. Below it were hundreds of star maps. Then came a second image. Zerath. And one message burned into the screen. Connection lost. Recovery incomplete. Awaiting command. Jack tightened his grip on the sword. It wasn't just a key. It was part of Earth's lost mission. A mission that somehow connected him to Zerath, the sword, and this forgotten alien world. Suddenly the ship shook. A voice rang out. Warning. External attack detected. Zern had begun firing at the Ark. Outside, panic spread as explosions hit the valley edge. Smoke filled the air. Aliens ran for cover. Tally screamed, "Jack, come back." But Jack didn't run. He walked to the ship's command core and placed the sword into a glowing port. Lights flared. The ship powered up. A shield covered the Ark, and the last thing the attackers saw was the human rising into the air, surrounded by light. The sky over Zerath turned golden. A beam of light shot upward from the Ark, the ancient starship buried beneath the valley for centuries. The sword had chosen. The ship had awakened. And now, the galaxy was watching. Inside the ship, Jack stood at the command core, the glowing blade resting in its socket. The ship's walls hummed softly, as if breathing. Lights moved like rivers. Through the metal floors, suddenly a voice echoed through the room. System activated. Maker identified. Message pending. A large screen dropped down from the ceiling, flickering with static. Then came a face. A human face. It was a woman, older than Jack, wearing a dark blue space uniform marked with Earth's lost symbol. Her face was tired but strong. Her voice cracked with emotion as she spoke. To whoever finds this message, I am Commander Alara Dane, Earth Alliance. Our mission was to plant peace across the stars. But something went wrong. Jack stared at the screen. He had never heard this name before, but somehow it felt familiar. Alara continued. This ship, the Ark, was meant to hold the codes of balance, one sword on every world. A test, a key. Only those with true hearts could pass. We trusted the aliens of Zerath, but their leaders grew greedy. The screen shook. The message glitched. Then she said something that made Jack stop breathing. If you're hearing this, one of us is still alive. And I'm with them. A new room in the ship opened. Inside, hidden behind a wall of glowing glass, was a cryopod. Jack stepped inside slowly. Dust covered the edges. Ice crystals sparkled along the walls. But in the center, curled gently in sleep, was another human. A woman. Younger than Alara. Her chest rose and fell softly like she was just dreaming. The screen above the pod read, Subject Mira Dane, Earthborn, Status, Alive, Time in Stasis, 624 years. Jack's heart raced. She's been asleep for over 6 centuries? Back outside, chaos erupted. Zern's blasts hit the ship's shield again and again. But it held strong. Villagers ran in fear as parts of the temple collapsed. But others, those who had seen the sword glow, began to gather around the Ark, holding their ground. Mokra raised his arms. Stand firm. The prophecy is unfolding. The human has brought the Ark to life. Even warriors who once doubted Jack now stood with him. They were tired of lies. They wanted truth. Inside the ship, Jack placed his hand on the cryopod glass. I'll get you out, he whispered. A control panel lit up. It asked, Do you wish to awaken, subject? Jack pressed yes. The pod began to thaw. Steam hissed. Lights blinked. And then her eyes opened. Mira gasped and coughed. She looked around, confused. Her voice was weak. Where am I? Who are you? Jack smiled. My name's Jack. I'm from Earth, I think. We were both sent here for something big. She stared at him. The sword? It worked? Jack nodded. It chose me. Her eyes filled with tears. Then we're not too late. Suddenly alarms blared inside the ship. A message flashed. External threat approaching, non-allied fleet entering orbit. Defense mode ready. Mira pulled herself up, still weak but alert. Jack, if the sword has chosen you, then the Ark will respond to your command. But you must act fast. Jack held the sword again. Its glow surged. Mira smiled faintly. The galaxy has forgotten Earth. It's time they remembered. Outside, the sky turned dark as a giant alien warship appeared above Zerath. It belonged to the Council, sent to stop the Ark from being used. They were afraid of the truth of the sword, of the return of the Makers. But Jack was no longer alone. He raised the sword high inside the command room. The ship responded instantly. Metal. Wings unfolded from the Ark's sides. Energy shields wrapped around its frame. Hundreds of lights came alive, and then it rose into the air. Villagers cheered. Children laughed. And in the eyes of every alien watching was fear, awe, and wonder. The sky burned with light. The Ark, the ancient starship hidden beneath the alien valley for centuries, now floated high above the planet Zerath. Its wings spread wide. Its engines hummed like a storm ready to rise. Below, the aliens watched in silence, their eyes filled with wonder and fear. And at the heart of the ship stood Jack, holding the glowing sword of light. A weapon, a key, a memory from Earth long forgotten. Beside him stood Mira Dane, now fully awake from cryosleep. Though weak from centuries in stasis, her voice was steady. We don't have much time, she said. The alien warship is armed. If they fire, this whole planet could fall. Jack nodded. Then we stop them. Inside the Ark, holograms lit up. Alien ships were moving fast, surrounding the skies of Zerath. These were not scouts. They were attack vessels, and they came with one order from the corrupt council. Destroy the human, destroy the sword, bury the truth again. Jack placed the sword into the command port once more. The Ark responded instantly. Its systems pulsed with new power. Defensive drones launched, shields brightened, and for the first time in 600 years, the ancient voice of the Makers echoed across the ship. The Chosen has returned. systems at full power, awaiting final command. But Jack paused. He could attack. He could fire and destroy the Council's warship. He could wipe them out, and no one would blame him. But then he looked at the sword, and remembered the words written on it. Only the hand that gives, not takes, may wield. He turned to Mira. If I use this to destroy them, I become like them. She looked at him, tears in her eyes. Then what will you do? Jack took a deep breath. I'll show them who we really are. Outside, the Council's warship locked onto the Ark. Prepare to fire, one of the commanders shouted. But before they could press the button, a message flashed across every screen. Inside the ship, across the skies, even inside the Council chambers on the planet. A live broadcast. And Jack's face appeared. He spoke, simply, I am Jack Rayner. I'm from Earth. You've forgotten us, but we never forgot our purpose. The sword was never meant for war. It was meant to find leaders who bring peace, not fear. The camera shifted, showing Mira, then the Ark's glowing walls, then the crowds of aliens below watching in silence. I know the truth now, Jack said, about the trials, the prophecy, and the lies that kept this world in chains, but I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to offer you a choice. Join us, or step aside. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, the Council's warship began to power down. Slowly, one by one, its weapons dimmed. The shields dropped. The fleet stopped moving. And across the galaxy, thousands of alien eyes stared at the screen and saw something they hadn't seen in a long, long time. Hope. Back on Zerath, the villagers cheered. Tali ran forward and shouted, The human has saved us. Mokra bowed his head. The sword has chosen well. Jack smiled, then turned to Mira. We have work to do. Over the next weeks, the Ark became a center of peace. Aliens from many worlds came to learn the truth. The Sword of Light was placed in a chamber at the ship's heart, not as a weapon but as a symbol of unity. Jack became a legend, but he never wanted fame. He walked among the people, he listened, he helped rebuild what had been broken. One evening, as the stars burned bright above, Jack stood at the edge of the valley watching the sky. Mira joined him. You did it, she said. No, Jack replied. We did it, you, me, the sword, the people. She smiled. What now? Jack looked up. We bring the light to the rest of the galaxy, and with that the Ark rose again, quiet, glowing, unstoppable. Led not by a king, not by a warrior, but by a human who simply believed in something better.